And he steps back, and this swan looks around at him with an intelligence in its dark eyes well beyond that of a bird, and slowly begins to transform into Alianora, the mayor of Honeywood's daughter. She looks at them and says, "Greetings, heroes of Honeywood," and faints. Okay, now what do we do? Well, let's get her out of the pool. And they pull her out, and they take her out of the clearing. They say, we don't want to make a camp here in the clearing. They know they can't just leave her, right, and carry on with her adventure. So they have to stand guard over her. They take her out of the clearing and find a place to camp, in the woods. And there, they make her as warm as possible, and they watch over her. This goes on for hours. I say it's a few hours later. It's into the early afternoon, and Touchberry says, "I'm not waiting anymore." And he takes his shield over to, there's a little stream in the, nearby. He takes his shield over there, dips into the stream, and comes back and splashes water on her face. Touchberry. She wakes up, right? And looks at them and says, "Oh, hello, friends. Hello. I'm glad I found you." "What on earth? Are you a were-swan?" I love that, a were-swan. Anyway, "Are you a were-swan?" She smiles and says, "No, not a were-swan. A swan may." Swan may? And she begins to tell a story. One day when she was out running errands for her father, because her father had begun to use her to carry messages hither and thither, to give her some duties, because she never seemed to fit in with the other young people in the village. He began to employ her, and one day, on a trip to an outlying hamlet from the village, or a little cluster of farmhouses or something, on her way there, she met an old woman wearing this white cape covered in feathers, and the old woman waved her over. "Young girl, your name is Alianora, is it not?" "Yes, Mum, it is." "You are the mayor's daughter." "Yes, I am. I am on errands for him. Can I help you?" "No, but I may help you. You do not know your mother, do you?" "No, my mother died when I was very young." "Yes. Your mother was a great and powerful woman." "No, my mother was simply one of the villagers." "That is what your father has told you, to protect you. He is a good man, but he does not understand. You are born of a man and a swan may." What? She'd never heard of this, and so this old woman told her of this race is the wrong word, guild, whatever. These women who are born with this capacity to transform into the swan, they are of the fairy realm, but in our realm. They don't exist in the fairy realm the way sprites do. They can't navigate both the way pixies and whatever do. But they do have something of the fae about them. They're born with this, but they must receive their cloak of feathers before this power is realized in them. This woman says, "I too am a swan may." And of course, Alianora is thinking, this woman is nuts. And then the woman transforms before her eyes into a swan. Now, even as a swan, she is aged, right? She's broken down. She's clearly approaching the end of her life. She transforms back into the human and says, "I must pass on my cloak to you. I am no longer able to fulfill the role of the swan may." Well, what is the role of a swan may? "To be a guardian to that which is good, to the rivers and ponds, to the other creatures of the world, to be a guide, and to be hope. To be hope when things become dark. And my dear, things are becoming dark." And she slips the cloak of feathers off of her own shoulders and holds it out to Alianora, who in trembling hands takes it. "Put it on, dear." And the girl did, and as she put it on, she felt her whole body infused with a lightness and a strength, and she began to change, and the cloak and her arms formed into wings, and her neck extended, and she became this beautiful swan. And then in fear, she immediately reacted, recoiled, and turned back. "This now is your gift, your burden. You must bear it as well you can. Be gentle with your father. He is a good man. He simply does not know." The old woman begins to walk away, and Alianora says, I called after her, but she would not stop, and I was afraid to pursue. I put the cloak under my own travel cloak, and went about my duties, and said nothing to anyone. But from that day on, every once in a while I would slip out of the village and into the woods, and try transforming. And I found that when I was transformed, I could speak to the animals. I could even hear the voice of rivers and streams and pools of water. It was entirely new. And of course, the players at this point are like, it's really cool. So she tells them about this, and then she says, "I was out again on an errand for my father, and I was returning to the village when I saw columns of smoke. I transformed and flew above, and there were beasts, like the ones who took the village before, half transformed into wolves, with wolves among them, and the man leading them, firing lightning and fire from his hands. In the village, the soldiers and some of our friends were helping to fight them back. Sulex, as grumpy as he was firing back at this wizard. They were having a wizard's duel. Sulex was having the worst of it. Sir Trevor was manning the gates and striking down werewolves courageously, but it looked like his strength was failing. Parson Supple, too, was casting spells upon our own soldiers to revive and renew them. And a visitor to our village, one who came recently, Sister Abigail, a woman who, when I met her, looked at me long and deep as if she knew my secret. She also was on the wall, casting spells and striking down werewolves, but they looked to be soon overwhelmed. I knew that I could do nothing of substance. And then I thought of you. I had heard that you were in the Dwarven realm. Sister Abigail had told me. I knew that you were near the Dwarven realm, so I flew there, but found you there not. And I came back and met a dryad. She told me that she had seen you and sent you to seek for oak and ash and thorn, so I flew. I must have come before you, for I found the clearing, and I entered the fairy realm. I have not found them, I did not find you there, until I heard the attack, and then I knew what must have happened." Whoa. Okay. Fleetwood says, "That's it. We can't bother with Oak and Ash and Thorn. We have got to get back to Honeywood. They need us. We've got to go back as soon as possible." How big is this swan? It's a normal... Okay, we can't ride on it. Okay, all right. So he's saying that. But then Bob, Johnny, and Fofire say, "You know what? I think 3 huge Ents might help us to defeat this werewolf army. Look how many they killed here. Right? They probably would like revenge, so maybe we should find them and revive them if we can and bring them out." Okay. Well, how do you find Ents? Well, first, clearly we have to go back to the fairy realm, because they seem to have left some means of getting there. The runes in their names. Clearly. All right, but Honeywood. We have to help Honeywood, so they decide they will search for 1 day, and if they cannot find Oak and Ash and Thorn in that day, they will return. That's okay. I had not intended them to be terribly difficult to find once they get to the fairy realm, because why would they go there and then make themselves hard to find if they left a way of finding them? Anyway, so, great. They gather their things, they gather their equipment up. Are we ready? They're still bruised up. Remember, Fleetwood's still at 12 hit points. Things are not in ideal shape. Back to the pool they go. They all touch the light, and again the fairy world melts into existence around them. All right, how do you find a bunch of Ents? Well, Touchberry goes for the direct approach and just starts shouting, "Oak! Ash! Thorn!" Right? Very Touchberry. But then the trees around the clearing begin to shiver and quiver, and there's a whispering through the branches, and two of the trees seem to move in the earth, opening a path between them. "We've got to go that way," says Touchberry, and off he goes down the path, and the others are like, "Oh, okay, let's follow." Down the path, the five of them now, with Alianora along, the five of them go. There's a brief sojourn in the woods as I sort of just switch around the positions of the trees, and we lay out some paths. Incidentally, we don't have enough plain grass tiles. We haven't made enough to do a large clearing, so ignore the presence of paths randomly stuck around the clearings. If the characters are all standing on the path, it means it's supposed to be a path. If they're not, then it's just a clearing and we don't have enough clear grass. Anyway, they go down the path, and so I move the trees around and the mushrooms just to make a couple of different scenes. As they travel, I roll for random encounters because there's going to be, fey creatures here, and I roll up an encounter. Now, I've got a random encounter table for the fairy world. Because you wouldn't encounter orcs or whatever here. It would be all, fairy creatures. And so I roll, and what do I... Oh! Out from behind a tree steps a satyr. He looks at them with suspicion. "What are you doing here? What do you do in our world, mortals? Are they with you, Swan May?" He can immediately see what she is, even though she's in human form. "Yes, they are with me. We are seeking Oak and Ash and Thorn." "Ah! Many have sought Oak and Ash and Thorn for their destruction. Are you they? Do you work with the beasts?" No, we hate the werewolves. We're trying to capture them. We're trying to defeat Bargle. We're just looking for Oak and Ash and Thorn to bring them back, to let them know the danger is past, and to seek their help in defeating the werewolves." "I don't trust you." He stops. He's had a glimpse of a flash of white tucked into Bob Johnny's belt. The last ragged remnants of the unicorn flowers that he picked. The flowers which did not fade. Now, they've been beat up because he's had them jammed in there, and he's been through battles and everything else. But they haven't shown any sign of fading, and the satyr can detect this. He's one of the fairy creatures. He can detect this. "You bear the unicorn's flower." "Yes, we met the unicorn in the forest, and I picked the flowers and kept them." "But they have not faded?" "No, they've unfortunately gotten beat up through all the battles we've been in, but no, they have not faded." "You are one pure of heart. You are one on whom the fairy folk smile. Very well. You have safe passage." And he withdraws back into the forest. So this is, look, Fleetwood makes most of the decisions for the group. He's the sort of brains of the operation. Touchberry is Touchberry, this huge personality. And my little guy, he's looking for a thing to be his. And this seemed like a good way to sort of honor his participation in it, that Bob Johnny has a nobility. And I look back at the play, and he's usually looking to do the best. He's usually looking to do what's right kind of thing. And as a child, he has such a sweet soul. So I'm like, okay, this is his thing. And so they have free passage, and they continue on their way. Eventually, they come upon another clearing, and there is a sense of warmth and life here. I mean, the entire fairy realm is like this, but here it's intensified, like a particularly golden sunbeam on a sunny day. They walk into the clearing and look around, and again, Touchberry says, "Oak! Ash! Thorn!" And again, the quivering and the whispering in the trees. This time, from among the trees, step forward 3 huge Ents. Now, these are, actually 2 of them are aquarium figures. They're aquarium decorations, which I got on eBay. And one of them I just got at I think it's a Michael's craft store. It's a little knick-knack kind of thing. I'd heard this song, sung by Eat, Bake, Sing, and I liked it so much I thought that would be a neat thing, I think I had originally actually bought the middle-sized one, I was just going to use it as an ent, and then I heard this song, and I started thinking about it. I read the poem by Kipling, and said, okay, we're going to use this in the thing. I need 3 of them, but I didn't want them to be all the same, so I found another aquarium decoration. I couldn't find a third, so I got this one. So we have oak and ash and thorn. Ash looks at them and says,
You have been touched by death. We are keepers of light. I can restore you.
and she gestures to Fleetwood and to Touchberry to follow. And they're like, okay. They trust them, though. And so they follow her into the forest. A little ways is a pool of water. And she says,
Descend into the pool.
they do. She lays her hands on their heads. Now, huge, gnarled wood hands. But it's as light as a feather. She begins to chant and sing and hum. And they feel from the water itself, they feel a tingling go through their body, and their strength is renewed and restored. They feel whole again. They're back to 6th level for Touchberry and 5th for Fleetwood. Whew, thank you. That was pretty lousy to lose a level. Okay, back out of the pond and back to the rest of the group, where Bob Johnny has been peppering them with questions about Ents. Oak says,
There is a deep evil in the world. These beasts we fought and who defeated us are servants of that evil.
well, how did they defeat you?
They are very powerful.
And then the little one, Thorn, speaks up.
And there is a great wizard with them who also serves the evil. His strength and his magic we could not break.
Ash takes up the narrative.
And so when it appeared to be hopeless, we hid ourselves in the world of the fairies.
Wow, how did you create that?
We combined our magic.
And together, we were able to breach the divide between mortal and fairy world.
Finishes Thorn. So there's 3 distinct characters here. Oak trees, oak wood is strong and mighty, so he's the biggest one and the strongest one. Ash, again, was a healing plant and also a great durability and strength, so she is the restorer, the healer, and Thorn. Its berries were also thought to have some medicinal quality, and its berries are edible. It's turned into jellies and stuff like that. But the little figure I found had a book and a staff, so he's kind of the wizard. Essentially, we have a fighter, a cleric, and a wizard. Sorry, thieves. Anyway, so they have these individual characters. All right. Will you help us? Will you help us to defeat Bargle, that's the wizard's name, and Evalio, the leader of the werewolves? And Thorn looks to the other 2.
Shall we?
The other 2 nod solemnly, and they stand. And of course, when Oak stands, it's quite a production. He's huge.
We shall help to defeat this evil.
Yes, we shall stomp upon them, and we shall bring renewal and hope.
Great. I bet they walk faster than we do. Can you carry us?
Yes, I can carry you. Yes, I can carry you.
And so they all find an ent to join. They decide to go back. First of all, go back to the pool and return to the mortal realm. And then Alianora says, I will fly to the Dryad and tell her what we have found, so that their minds may be put at ease. And then I will catch up to you. By wing I can be faster even than the Ents. And so off she flies. She transforms and corkscrews into the air and flies off to the west to find the Dryad again and to relate the news. As the Ents pick up the heroes of Honeywood and place them in branches and on crags and stuff like that, and they begin striding through the forest at a pace way more than a human could manage. They begin striding through the forest, eastward, toward Honeywood. For Honeywood,